was a Bitcoin. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So we're gonna get into the daily dunk. Today is Bitcoin's birthday. We have survived 13 years of haters and cryptocurrencies dropping ICOs trying to take over Bitcoin. Just kidding, those are not really a threat. And but today we're dunking on them, and we're gonna dunk on the quantum attack theory by celebrating the other holiday that is today that I'm not sure if you guys are aware of. It's called Proof of Keys Day. And it's brought to you by a breakdown of kind of Proof of Keys Day and also the quantum attack FUD and what, separating what is a real concern there and what is not by Jameson Lopp. So we're going to talk about quantum resistance, taking Proof of Keys Day to the next level. So it's going to get a little more it's going to get a little bit more techie here in the next few minutes. So in the beginning, 13 years ago, when Satoshi Nakamoto mined the Genesis block, 13 years ago today, giving rise to the Bitcoin blockchain, he sparked a cryptographic revolution. You could store your wealth behind personal private keys. You guys who have Bitcoin are familiar with this protocol, I hope. For God's sakes, get your Bitcoin off exchanges and protect it behind some private keys. Basically, in Bitcoin, you have to prove you have a secret without revealing what that secret is. That secret is your private keys. Your ability to keep your private keys private is your ability to hold Bitcoin in a sovereign and safe manner. So it's of utmost importance. If you don't know much about private keys, I highly recommend look into it, read about it. Very complicated subject, very important and increasingly important subject as we move through 2022. So we're celebrating this every January 3rd. Proof of Keys Day is an opportunity to reflect on that breakthrough invention, if you want to call Bitcoin an invention. I believe it is. It's changing the course of humanity by ensuring that you all hold your private keys. So basically, to celebrate Proof of Keys Day, we're encouraging you to get your Bitcoin off exchanges. In recent years, Bitcoiners usually celebrate by just together taking their Bitcoin off exchanges. Actually, if everyone made a run on like Coinbase, and it would take probably several days or weeks to get their Bitcoin off exchanges. That's one of the reasons you're encouraged to do it, is because at the time when it becomes urgent to do it, say Coinbase gets attacked, it'll be too late. You won't be able to. Everyone will rush at once. The price goes too high, these exchanges go down. Price goes too low, these exchanges go down. Take control of your private keys, guys. Get them off exchanges, and you don't have those problems. You can sleep well at night, relying only on proof of work and private key, one-way hashing algorithm. It's a hash function. It's great. So this year we're taking proof of keys a step further by calling out a threat on the horizon and explaining why we should act now to keep our keys as robust as ever. That threat is quantum computing. You'll often hear this, what'll happen to Bitcoin when quantum computing comes around, becomes more affordable. You'll often hear this dismissed, actually, by Bitcoiners, the threat of quantum computing. But I think we'll entertain it just for today. I don't think this is something that should keep you up at night, really, but you ought to look into these things. I don't think you should just take someone's word for it that it's not a threat, don't worry about it. I think it's important we look into it. So what is quantum computing? You may have noticed that computers are a lot smaller than they used to be, right? Your cell phone is already more processing power than was used to allegedly get us to the moon. It's incredible, really, how small these processors have gotten. So this is the result of countless scientific breakthroughs ranging from nanophysics to chemistry, of semiconductor materials, and quantum mechanics. Basically, we're studying the world at the most granular level possible to unlock the potential of base materials and complex applications, right? You may have heard of Moore's law, which is like the exponentially decreasing size of microchips, to the point where, one day we'll be constructing things atom for atom. like nanorobotics. So Moore's law is very quickly coming to an end. So on a longer, like mid to long range time scale, within the next 100 years, I think the quantum computing discussion will become more and more relevant. But that's just me. So quantum computing is where the fields of quantum mechanics and computer science meet. As our atomic and subatomic understandings grow, we apply the knowledge to create more powerful and efficient computers. And I will point out, like, a lot of fiat money delays this process, like a lot of fiat science and all the bureaucratic bullshit and fake government funded studies and the coronaviruses of the world. Like, all these things make it harder for progress to be made in the fields of quantum computing and in any serious technological field. So the more of the world that adopts a Bitcoin standard, I think that actually further propels our ability to make progress on these fronts as a society. It brings science back to something like a legitimate base with a real monetary measure that isn't being extended at both ends. It isn't being inflated and taxed and manipulated. That's the great thing about Bitcoin. I think it's really going to incentivize good, hard science. No one's going to spend their Bitcoin for less. So we're living in the information age. Those who wield the best technology, that's Bitcoin, one of those, will reap massive rewards in the years to come. It's hard to envision the potential of quantum computing because we don't know what we don't know. So building a quantum computer is like trying your hand at alchemy or cold fusion. If you somehow manage to succeed, the payoff, like unlimited upside, the payoff is limitless, right? But what constitutes quantum computing, it's hard to describe wholly. But for the sake of argument, consider it a transcendental improvement to the processing power that we currently have at our disposal, like bigger than 10 times or 100 times improvement, bigger even than 1,000-time improvement in our processing power, probably. Quantum processing power is measured in qubits. And it's thought that certain types of Bitcoin addresses could become susceptible to attack at several thousand qubits. And the latest advanced model of quantum computer is around 125 qubits. So while quantum computing isn't a phenomenon that we expect in the immediate future, it is within a couple orders of magnitude, which might not be very long in technological terms. As I explained, I think Bitcoin will accelerate the capacity for individuals to do good science. And I do mean individuals, firms, who knows, MicroStrategy might try their hand in this. Their software as a service company, Bitcoin company, but they're going to become exponentially more wealthy the more people adopt Bitcoin. And people who hold Bitcoin are not going to want to spend it for bad science. They're not going to need to take on government subsidies and have their results skewed or produce like sort of like toy electric cars for green carbon credits or go the path of Elon, right? They're going to be able to make real fundamental changes in science. So back to cryptography. Cryptography allows us to obscure information into a format that's practically impossible to guess or compute. And cryptography is what makes Bitcoin highly defensible. The software clients and wallets can change, but the cryptography must remain intact. Each Bitcoin address is generated with a private key, a number so cosmologically or cosmically large, it's hard to comprehend. I mean, that's what the wallets are essentially. They're just waiting to be like, so they're all already out there, all the private keys and wallets, but they're not all inhabited, and they never will be. And the odds of finding any two that give you access to the same wallet are very, 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 very slim. If you had the processing power to try to break like a private key or a wallet to force one of these things, you'd be better off spending that processing power just mining Bitcoin. That's the way the incentives are aligned, rather than ruining and signaling to others that, the encryption, the value in Bitcoin is no longer there because it's been destroyed. You'd be better off just joining the system and kind of be a wolf in sheep's clothing and just become an all-star miner. So the number, again, the private key, this number is so huge that it's difficult to comprehend. It's as difficult to comprehend as like the number of atoms in the universe. It is significantly smaller than that number, but it's up there. It's like a lock with nearly infinite combinations. A malicious actor could try to guess your private key, but they would most likely die of old age trying. So processing power is important from a game theoretical perspective because computers continue to advance every year, as predicted by Moore's law, which we talked about. So Bitcoin only survives as long as the potential for a computational attack against public keys remains out of reach. To date, no one has been able to accomplish such a feat, but this is not guaranteed to always be the case. Cryptographic algorithms do tend to get weakened and eventually cracked as our understanding of math and computing and our processing power evolves. Satoshi's first line of defense in this regard, Satoshi anticipated continued technological advancement to some extent. They included one safeguard to keep actors from overtaking the Bitcoin network with processing power alone. This is what's known as the difficulty adjustment. The algorithm self-regulates every 2016 blocks, increasing or decreasing the mining difficulty to keep the relative time for Bitcoin blocks at roughly every 10 minutes. So in case you guys are wondering, that's why the 10-minute block time is a great block time, interplanetary transactions notwithstanding. But we've talked about that on other episodes, so we can come back to that at a later time. But this feature, this difficulty adjustment, was a must-have in Bitcoin's early days when the network was at its most vulnerable, and it's really the innovation that sealed together this as a humanity-altering invention. It's a very important innovation that saved Bitcoin when it was vulnerable in a very small network, subject to attack. So the wild hash rate changes back then when computers would come on to mine Bitcoin and hop off posed an existential threat. And for the most part, the difficulty adjustment has encouraged those who briefly gain a computational advantage to use their power for good and mine Bitcoin rather than attack the network. As we discussed, the incentives are very well aligned if they're like, if you had to give Satoshi, I don't know, like a job description or some sort of award, I don't know if I'd give him like the Nobel Peace Prize or something like that. I would probably give him like the best incentive engineer ever, right? Like he really designed Bitcoin such that as if everyone who took part in it was a bad faith actor, rather than assuming people are good or relying on trust. And that's why it's just such an objectively good, cold, and calculating protocol that's really just prepared to maneuver through any number of attacks. So there is, however, I must mention, like a theoretical possibility of a massive computational breakthrough that could happen sometime that imbues a corporation or nation state with a lopsided advantage over the network. To get an idea of the scale we're talking about, consider how the development of the nuclear bomb tipped the scales in World War II. If an actor were to obtain such an advantage, they're heavily incentivized to deploy it right away, rather than watch it fade slowly over time. This is what's known as a first mover advantage, obviously. So the upgrades are going to be necessary in Bitcoin. It's important that we maintain the software. It's important that we strengthen it over time. If a quantum computing attack occurred, some network components would be more vulnerable than others. That's because, it's a blockchain, guys. It's all out there on the table. All the Bitcoin that have ever been in existence are in theory still out there. When we say a Bitcoin is lost, what it means is that we've lost our access to it. It's not that it ceased to exist. It's still inhabiting a wallet out there in cyberspace. It's just that no data has been used to represent it at this point that we know of. It's just disappeared from our physical realm, but it's still there. It's still the math that still exists. You could still retrieve it in theory if you could guess, the wild combination. So, for instance, there's often discussion about whether Satoshi's coins, an amount estimated to be as much as 1.1 million Bitcoin, will ever move. Will they ever move? If Satoshi's dead, most likely not. Are they scheduled to move? I don't think so. Time will tell, right? The more alarming situation could be if Satoshi's coins were stolen. Early Bitcoin addresses are actually weaker from a cryptographic standpoint. So you'll see many of the coins that have not moved from a long time. There's speculation as to whether or not they ever will. Are these people who had them dead, or more likely, or I don't know about more likely, but did they lose access to their private keys somehow? But what also at the same time, what we do see is, every month or so, you do see some 10-year-old coins or something like that suddenly move, and you're like, oh wow, they hadn't updated in a long time, this is an old address, and suddenly they've moved and they've tightened their security. It's kind of unbelievable, but it happens. So anything's on the table at this point. So these addresses, these older addresses, they often use a pay to public key setup, which is P2PK, meaning the actual public key is still on the blockchain. So a powerful enough quantum computer could potentially reverse engineer a private key from the public key and spend the associated address. This means Satoshi's coins could become mineable. If the coins stay put for all eternity, and the quantum computing eventually, catches up, you've got this huge honeypot of these cryptographically slightly weaker addresses. It's kind of hard to imagine how much weaker they are than the addresses we're using now, but it's enough so to incentivize an attacker. I mean, you can rest assured knowing that Satoshi left that honeypot or sacrifice, and other people who have simply lost their Bitcoin have also just left this huge honeypot of unmoved coins that are behind a slightly weaker, wall of cryptography. So yeah, that's the honeypot for the quantum computers, and that's the addresses that they will attack first, basically signaling to the rest of the network, right? If Satoshi's coins were to move today, I don't know that I would rush to sell my coins, but it would certainly, everyone in Bitcoin would hear about it, right? That would be huge news. If Satoshi's coins moved, that would be quite concerning on many levels, to be honest with you. So most addresses in recent years use the pay to public key hash function, which provides another cryptographic layer of protection. But the scenario mentioned above illustrates how problematic the right kind of supercomputer could be. Like, attackers are going to look for the weakest link as a point of entry. So the future of Bitcoin is going to be quantum resistance and resistance to quantum attacks. So computation it's just a competition, right? We often talk, Jason Lowery often brings to bear his argument that computation and Bitcoin is basically outsourcing war to war of machines. There's a battle carried out in Bitcoin every 10 minutes as miners compete for blocks. And then so while the quantum computing threat isn't something we expect to be worth worrying about for many years, it is better to be proactive rather than wait for it to come to us. Surely, I mean, we don't want all our fun to end. I don't know, 35 years from now, when the quantum computer comes that can finally crack a Bitcoin address. It's just a number. I have no idea how long this will take. No one knows. But security is the science of staying ahead, right? You're thinking ahead. You're solving all the problems that you can imagine. So the very act of wealth preservation is comprised basically of staving off many attempts to steal or otherwise, dissipate your wealth. That's all wealth preservation is, right? You're keeping others from stealing your wealth. So one immediate strategy for personal, like quantum resistance, is to never reuse addresses. Because once you spend from an address, you expose the address's public key on chain. By withholding your public keys, you make it harder for a quantum computer to eventually target you through reverse engineering. So this is a tactic that you can use today. I think along those lines, consolidating your addresses and moving them will keep you from reusing them. And then going forward, Bitcoiners, should probably engage in discussion rather than shutting down things like the quantum theory attack. I mean, just because old Bitcoiners have put it to rest, make sure you understand and go through these arguments for yourself. Of course, like you want to verify. You want to verify these potential threats, even in your own head, just to promote your better understanding of Bitcoin for yourself. So we should talk about how to upgrade our cryptographic infrastructure to prepare for the rise of quantum computing, because, let's face it, we know it's coming. The recently activated Taproot upgrade eschews the participation of multiple signatures behind a single signature. Excuse me. This is a good example of kind of the creativity that could be accomplished if we all work and vote in tandem to try to improve Bitcoin. And we can harness this groupthink and this hive mind innovation and harness the innovations that come as a result of quantum computing for the good of Bitcoin. So proof of keys day is more than a one-day affair. It's basically a way of life. As Bitcoiners, if you're a seasoned Bitcoin holder, it's up to prove our keys time and time again in the face of evolving threats. And the last note from Jameson Lopp is cypherpunks write code and they never stop writing. So just thought I'd share that piece with you guys. I found it awesome. Jameson Lopp, great actor in the space, great security expert over at Casa when it comes to working for Bitcoin. I think it's time. You guys have been with us for a long time here now. To give away some Bitcoin, and you guys can practice securing it from quantum threats and other threats and $5 wrench attacks. So just be sure to celebrate Bitcoin's birthday today and Proof of Keys Day by taking your Bitcoin off exchanges and get it in a cold storage wallet. If you don't have a cold storage wallet, take some of that Christmas cash and go buy one. Go buy a cold card. It's hard for me to recommend anything besides cold card, but cold cards are daunting. So, maybe start out with a Ledger, a Trezor. Don't listen to me. Go start out with whatever you want. Try whatever hardware wallet you want. I would just recommend being careful and sending extremely small amounts of Bitcoin. Like the amount of Bitcoin we're going to put on screen behind a code for someone to win. Use those sats and transfer those tiny amounts for now. Before you put your whole net worth on some device that you've only had for like a day or two. So just be careful, take your time. Security in Bitcoin is an ever evolving process. I know many Bitcoiners whose resolution is just to New Year's resolution is just to upgrade their security, just piece by piece, month by month, this year and every year. It never ends. Basically, as Bitcoin goes up in fiat terms, the incentive for people to come try to steal your Bitcoin also rises. So you need to think ahead and protect that shit as if it's worth $10 million today, if you believe it's going where we think it's going in terms of price and in terms of basically a value to humanity. Like anyone who's held Bitcoin or transferred it for themselves and really understood what it means to be basically the warden of their own sovereign wealth fund, they see the value and protect it like it's worth more than anything you've ever owned, because it really is. So make sure you allocate a big budget for your security, the security of your Bitcoin, a healthy budget, and mostly that means a lot of time. Put some time into it, put some effort into it, put some reading into it. Go read Jameson Lopp, go sign up for his new newsletter. He's a mensch. We're gonna have him on the show soon, I think. And next I had a nice little Sailor animation I want to play for you guys. And then after that, just to give you your daily dose of Sailor, and after that we'll get out of here. Maybe we'll give away some more Bitcoin and then get out of here. Thanks for watching, guys. We're gonna do couple ads in a sailor animation now. Thank you.
Woody was a Bitcoin. Yes.